Hi everyone, welcome to our first formal lecture of the 3-week, Core 180, Dollars and Cents. I am Dr. Lee. Thank you all for sending in your introductory emails yesterday. It's great to get to know all of you, albeit remotely, but once we're all back at Sweetbriar, if you want to come and stop by my office and introduce yourself, that would be great. So this is Dollars and Cents, and I think it would be good to start with a unit in cents. And you might be asking yourself, why are we studying cents? And the reason is Core 180 is a course in understanding economic argument. And personal finance, which we'll be talking about in each unit, is just one very particular form of economic argument that we need to have to become leaders in our own right. So in this unit on cents, we're going to study some forms of logic and critical thinking and behavior. And the reason is we are interested in difficult questions. And the easiest way we can proceed when we're dealing with difficult questions, whether economic, whether financial, whether otherwise, is to formalize them in a common framework. And when it comes to economic and financial arguments in particular, we often see math, we often see statistics. And so being able to formalize those math and statistics from an evaluative standpoint, from a logical standpoint, is going to help us evaluate their arguments overall. And if that doesn't convince you, I promise thinking in this fashion will help you get into law school. So you'll notice that the slides that are posted on Canvas are going to be a little different than this lecture video. There's a lot more information contained on those slides. And let's start off with our first example of that. And this is our really way of diving straight into what it means to think critically and logically. So in this example, there are 3 types of storage: regular, warehouse, and special. And the storage in this example follows 5 rules. Now you can read these rules on your own, and in the slides for practice, we've got some examples for you to play through on your own. So take a minute, press pause on this video, and go ahead and figure out what type of storage we should be using in the slides. Welcome back, and you might be asking yourself why we're studying this sort of decision making. And the reason is because decision-making is complex, and we're interested in complex and difficult questions in this class. And because this is a course in leadership, it's even more complex when we're dealing with decisions involving people. So when you look at this picture, what do you see? Well, you see a person with her eyebrows raised, with a mouth open. You might think this person is screaming. You might think this person is upset. Right away, you're drawing a lot of conclusions before you even think about what's going on. Before you have to stop and analyze, you can already get to a bunch of inferences that we can then evaluate. But what's going on when we see something like this? Well, most of us can't evaluate this right away. We're going to have to engage the more critical, slow-thinking parts of our mind. But the fast-thinking parts of our mind are reacting as well. You might notice a stressful response. You might notice that your pupils dilate, or your heart rate picks up, or you might start to sweat. And already we know some inferences about what's going on. For instance, we might think that 101 is too low a number, and something around 13,000 is too high a number. But what about a number like 528? This seems about right, but we don't know for sure if this is the right number. And we'd really have to stop and think about evaluating it. And this is how we engage the slow thinking part of our mind. And in actuality, the number is 408. So what we just saw is an example of 2 systems that are operating in our brain. System 1 is operating fast, automatically, with little or to no effort. Right away, we can see that that person is screaming at us. System 2 is slow and effortful. We have to choose to evaluate 17 times 24. It requires concentration to get to this number. And this is very powerful that we're both intuitive and thoughtful. But the problem is, because we are intuitive and thoughtful, we can be prone to systematic errors. So put differently, system one creates these intuitions, these intentions, these feelings, and can be very accurate when it comes to familiar situations. When we see a person with their eyebrows raised and their mouth wide open, we know right away that they're screaming at us. But because we can't turn this intuition off, we can be prone to errors. So for example, when I put this on the slide, was anyone not able to read that word? And if I tell you to do not read this word, can you not read it? No, because every time you look at it, you see that it says national. So let's continue with these examples of how we can be prone to errors. And when I show you these examples, I want you to answer them as fast as you can. So in these simple examples, we have a bat and a ball that together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. We want to know how much the ball costs. Or 5 machines, 5 minutes to make 5 widgets. How long would it take 100 machines to make 100 widgets? Or in a lake where there's a patch of lily pad and the patch is doubling every day, if it takes 48 days for the patch to cover the entire lake, how long would it take for the patch to cover half of the lake? These questions form what's known as the cognitive reflection test, which is a task designed to measure how often you stick to your gut reaction, or whether you're overriding your gut response. So when we have our intuitive, our system one answers, we typically think 10 cents, 100 minutes, and 24 days, while the correct solutions are 5 cents, 5 minutes, and 47 days. So on your own on the slides, you can go back and revisit this, but let's do it together as a class, right? A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. So in other words, we have something plus $1 equaling $1.10. We have 1 plus 2x equaling $1.10. That gives us an x of 5 cents. Saying it differently, 5 cents and something that costs $1 more than 5 cents, so 5 cents and $1.05 together are $1.10. And we all know this, but when we're operating intuitively, we tend to not slow down and say, hey, this is a simple algebra problem. In that other question, we have 5 machines taking 5 minutes to make 5 widgets. So we can assume that each machine here is making 1 widget, and it takes 5 minutes to make a widget. So when we have 100 machines, they're each making 1 widget. It still takes them 5 minutes, and it takes 100 machines 5 minutes to make 100 widgets. And that last question, and again, it might be helpful if you're following along on the slides, when we have a lake doubling every day, and the patch covering the entire lake in 48 days, we know that 1 day ago, half the lake was covered, which means it takes 47 days. And what we're seeing when we listen to our gut is that we've been using a strategy to simplify complex information. And what happened in this past example, but doesn't necessarily always happen, is we might have judged too quickly and we can jump to conclusions. So let's another example, and this one came from a friend of mine who has a child and posted this to Twitter. So Carrie has 15 lollipops, 10 of them are red, how many are yellow? And right away we might say 5, but really the answer is we don't know, because it doesn't say that lollipops are only red or yellow. But we know something a little beyond that, which is it's not that the answer is we don't know. We have a more precise answer, which is between 0 and 5 are yellow. We can at least identify some of that effect. And that's what's known as partial identification. In other words, we've taken the given information and we've engaged that critical part of our mind to say what it is we can figure out from this information. And with that, let's wrap up this mini chunk of the lecture, and we'll get back to some of these behavioral biases in the next one. Welcome.